นะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะพุทธังธัมมังสังฆังนะมัสสามิ Good evening. This evening we're practicing together at Bodhipala Monastery, Mount Pleasant, South Australia. And true to the name, the conditions are pleasant. Bodhipala Monastery is a very peaceful place. And the weather is just nice, not too hot, not too cold. So a very suitable place to come together to meditate, chant, and listen to the Dhamma. All of these practices we do, they aim to help bring up awareness and understanding of Dhamma, of truth. This is what the Buddha pointed out, frees us from suffering. When our mind is in line with the Dhamma, it's in line with the truth, then it's harder for us to create suffering out of our experience. The Buddha pointed out suffering comes from not knowing, from delusion, not knowing. Sometimes it even used the word intoxication. So if you've ever been intoxicated with something and then you sober up, you wake up, you know what it's like. Coming back to reality from a place where you've been in confusion or intoxication. Sometimes our mind is like that. We, even though we're going about our daily business, our mind can be miles away or lost in its moods, not very alert, not very awake. So the Buddha was encouraging us to develop this practice to wake ourselves up to the truth, because this has a liberating effect on the mind. They say one who sees the Dhamma, sees the truth, they see the Buddha. And the Buddha inside of us is that quality of the mind that is developed awareness, alertness, and insight into the true nature of everything. This body, this mind, and the world around us. So they call it a process of awakening your own mind by practicing Dhamma. And you might remember sometimes when you've been asleep, in deep sleep, and you wake up, very quickly there may be a few moments of adjustment where you can't even remember where you are. It's not that you went to bed drunk or something, but you just wake up from a deep sleep where your memory and your thoughts have completely gone quiet. And then suddenly you wake up. Could be in the night, in the morning. But for a few moments you can't even remember where you are, what you were doing. Usually we wake up from sleep. There's a few moments of gradually waking up, and we're familiar with where we are, and we can probably still remember when we went to bed. But occasionally you get those times where you just suddenly, your mind wakes up and you're in unfamiliar territory. The truth can be like that. Sometimes it kind of wakes us up with a jolt. And sometimes you cut through the mind of the imagination and the thinking mind and the mind of moods and emotions. Because all those things, as you practice more this path of developing awareness and contemplating your experience. As you're waking up, you see how much of the time your mind is lost in like dreams and thoughts and imagination. And we're missing the deeper truths of life. So the Buddha was encouraging us to develop these qualities of wakefulness, alertness, over and over again through our life, to help us bring the mind back to the truth and not always be so lost in all the trains of thought and the moods and the emotions and the imagination. Because this is the way we can free our mind from suffering. We talk a lot about freedom in our culture, our society. Everyone wants to be free from authority, free from people telling me what to do, free from rules and regulations. But one kind of freedom we miss is the freedom of the mind on the inside that knows and understands truth. Because even if we somehow get ourselves into a situation where we don't have too many rules or anyone bossing us around, no one nagging us, telling us what to do, if we haven't understood our own mind is still like some kind of authority figure or boss telling us all the time what we like, what we don't like, what we want, what we don't want, filling our heads full of views and opinions. And we're not truly free. As you practice more mindfulness and then contemplate your experience, you realize a lot of the time we're following around our habits, our attachments and mental habits, and we're not yet truly free. And often they're leading us into all kinds of attachments and clinging, deepening that experience of the mind that clings, and deepening the causes for suffering. Somebody was talking about the 5 precepts. As Buddhists, we use the 5 precepts as a guideline for daily living. Learning to live in a harmless way, or we say an ethical way, where we train our speech, our actions not to harm others. So these are like guidelines, training rules that the Buddha encouraged us to keep in daily life. Not as commandments or orders, but just as wise guidelines to help us reflect on our behavior so that we don't create unnecessary suffering for ourselves and others. But many people see them as just kind of burdensome rules and miss the point and say, oh, Buddhists, you have to keep the 5 precepts. Sounds like very strict to me, unreasonable. Why did the Buddha make you keep 5 precepts? Why was the Buddha so bossy? But these are rules or guidelines that you take on for yourself. And they're not nearly as oppressive as this voice in the back of your head, which is always forming opinions about things, and then just pushes you around. You think about it every day, your mind is telling you what it wants, what it likes, what it doesn't want, what it doesn't like. If you look closely, you probably agree it's far more oppressive than just following simple guidelines like undertaking to refrain from physically harming or killing other people, creatures, refrain from stealing, refrain from sexual misconduct, refrain from lying, refrain from taking drink or drugs that intoxicate the mind, even though they can be challenging guidelines to follow. But this voice in the back of your head is far more oppressive, far more controlling, nagging, critical. So this is what the practice of Dhamma is helping us to understand and get right down into the real source of our suffering, the attachment to our own views and opinions and sense of self, this body, this mind, our memories, our feelings, emotions, and not letting them always control us and keep bringing us to experience of suffering. Getting to see that, waking up to the truth, waking up to the Dhamma. And the way of practice comes from a place of wisdom and understanding. The Buddha understood the human mind very well and learned to see where suffering comes from, and then shared that with us out of compassion and kindness and sharing true wisdom. And this, the wisdom of the Buddha is not just theoretical analysis of experience, but it's direct knowledge of the mind that's developed through long periods of patient observation, reflection, learning to calm the mind, clear away a lot of what we call the mental hindrances, the pancha nivarana, and then looking clearly at the way things are. So it's direct knowledge of the mind. Even though in later years it's been written down and theorized and given a structure, which is what we call the Dhamma, the texts. It's all coming from a human mind that is well trained in observing itself and going beyond the normal kind of superficial attachments and clinging that human beings get caught up in and cause us so much suffering. And then all those people who have practiced since the time of the Buddha, they've also developed this kind of inner knowledge of their own mind, seeing how their minds work, how their minds create suffering by clinging, craving and clinging and attaching to moods and thoughts and desires, to the physical world, the mental world, without awareness and causing suffering, dissatisfaction, discontent. And they've proven to us that it can be done. Well, other human beings, not just the Buddha, can do this. In the time of the Buddha, there were, they say, 80 leading students of the Buddha. They call them the Asiti Sawakas. They're like the prominent, enlightened disciples, students of the Buddha. If you read the Buddha's life story, you see these students, they all had different characters. They were leading monks, leading nuns. There are, of course, many prominent laymen, laywomen practitioners as well. And these leading disciples became arahants, enlightened, but they had different characters, personalities. But they all penetrated through to the same truth, the understanding and clear, direct knowledge that the things of this world are impermanent, unsatisfactory, not self. As we just chanted tonight, sabbe sankhara anicca, sabbe sankhara dukkha, sabbe dhamma anatta. They had their different backgrounds and karma and character and personalities, but one thing they all did is follow kind of this pathway inwards to understand the nature of their own body and mind and push through some of the delusions and attachments that we have as human beings. And that has been going on from the time of the Buddha right up till today, with teachers like Luang and many other enlightened monks, nuns in the modern era. And they all developed this inner knowledge. Some also had great knowledge of the world. They studied a lot and learnt a lot of what we might call worldly knowledge. Some didn't. But they all had the inner knowledge of the mind, the nature of this body and mind, seeing it as impermanent, not self. That much they all developed, that clarity, and that's where true liberation comes. So all the practice of the Dhamma we do every day is helping us to develop this awakened understanding of the world. And it's not another way of sort of imposing another viewpoint on us. It's actually just revealing what's there already, but helping us to clear away some of the dust, some of the confusion from our minds through this practice of waking up to the truth. So there are some aspects of the practice that everyone will develop in common. So we practice generosity, sila, morality, bhavana, developing calm and insight through developing the mind, or developing mindfulness, states of calm, and then contemplating. But what the details of each person's experience will vary from person to person, because we have different character and different collection of karma and attachments. So it's like climbing up a mountain. You've got one peak of the mountain to get to, but there's many ways to climb up. Many pathways can be chosen. And some people plod along quite slowly and take a very gentle, not a very steep path, but a gentle path, going round and round the mountain, gradually getting to the top. Others go straight up the face of the mountain, the steepest face, quickest route. Sometimes the ones going up the steepest, quickest route, if they're very strong and put a lot of effort, well, they might get to the top very quickly. And they reach true knowledge and understanding of the way things are. Others, maybe they try, but they're not yet strong enough, so they fall back. It's just too tough. Others who are going up the slow ways, sort of winding around the mountain, they might have a different experience. They're going slower, but they learn a lot on their way because they're going slowly, so they see a lot of the rocks and the trees and the animals, and they can see the view as they go. Maybe they have a danger, they're going slowly and on a very gentle incline going up the mountain. Maybe they can get lost and end up never quite getting to the top. They just go round and round in circles. But the aim is to go to the top of the mountain, but everyone might have their own route to take and their own pace that they go. As long as they're going up the mountain, then they're going towards the goal. It's like practicing the Dhamma. You're working through different accumulated karmic attachments that you've built up maybe for many lifetimes. All your likes and dislikes, but we're learning to establish awareness and wake up from the intoxicating effect of them. All your preferences and all the different things you hold on to. You're waking up to the truth and trying to develop clarity in the middle of it all. And where there's clarity, there's stillness, there's peace. Peace in the middle of both pleasure and pain, pleasant experiences, unpleasant experiences. And when you start your practice, start climbing up this mountain, often your practice is more, you notice your habit is more to just always seek pleasure, seek the comfortable way, the pleasant way. But then after a while you might notice that you can't always get pleasure, pleasant experiences to get you away from the painful, unpleasant ones. It may last Might get a bit of pleasure for a while, but it doesn't last that long. And then you're back to facing some unpleasant experiences. Life is like that. We have a mixture of the pleasant and the unpleasant. If we're always clinging on to the pleasant and seeking that, running towards it, we're kind of stuck in an endless cycle of sort of running away from the unpleasant, trying to hold on to the pleasant, but never quite peaceful. The mind is never still. So the Buddha encouraged us to develop this path of waking up to the truth, where you're keeping your mind in the middle and neither investing all your energy in holding on or seeking pleasure, nor resisting and fighting pain, but just recognizing that's the nature of experience. It veers between either pleasant or painful or somewhere in the middle. But that's the way of human life. We have some pain, some pleasure, but not grasping or clinging to either. So the Buddha said, I've developed this path, and I've transcended, or I sit above pleasure and pain, the ups and downs of life. It doesn't mean to say a Buddha or an enlightened disciple of the Buddha no longer experiences pleasure and pain, but their mind doesn't cling or hold on to the pleasure and pain. They know the nature of it is impermanent, unsatisfactory, not self. These are what we call the universal characteristics of experience. Universal means they apply over and over again from whatever angle your experience comes at you. That you can find these signs or these features of the experience. So you wake up and you're in a good mood, but that good mood is impermanent, unsatisfactory, it's not a self, it has its causes and conditions. You go through your day and then you may have an unpleasant experience, put you in a bad mood, and that also has its causes and conditions. And the happiness, the suffering of life, it keeps showing us these features if we keep looking in the right place, looking back at ourselves. The experience of this body, our thoughts, feelings, emotions, sense contact, sense objects that we experience from the world. It's always teaching us something if we're willing to look. Sometimes Ajahn Chah, our teacher, would say, people would ask, what do you need to practice in the beginning? What bit of Dhamma, what qualities? And he would say, you need patient endurance and you need to contemplate. Sometimes he wouldn't talk about dana, sila, bhavana, sila, samadhi, panya, or other aspects of the Buddhist teachings. He'd just say, be patient and contemplate. You have to be patient with all the restlessness of our mind, the changing experience of our life. Sometimes things are up, sometimes down, pleasant, unpleasant, good mood, bad mood. Being patient through that, not always reacting, grasping, but then contemplating everything, looking and learning from your experience. And if you keep doing that, you become familiar with the way things are, the way our body and mind are, and the way the world appears to us. In the end, how do you know the world? It's through your eyes, your ears, your nose, your tongue, your skin, and then the mind that picks up information all the time, concepts, ideas, memories, images. And this is always changing according to causes and conditions. And if you keep looking and learning from that, you become aware of the familiar patterns of the mind, the cycles of the mind, the cycles of life. And this is like the arising of right view that sees the impermanent nature, the unsatisfactory nature of phenomena, and the ultimately the lack of a self, a solid self in these things that are always changing. But we have to keep contemplating to bring our mind to the truth, to the Dhamma. Just knowing, oh yeah, it's impermanent. Things went well, things didn't go well. This was a very pleasant experience, and that was an unpleasant one. I got what I wanted, I didn't get what I want. The world seems a great place, the world seems a terrible place. It's constantly changing. But there's something that grows, some deeper knowledge that grows as we practice this, being patient, observing, contemplating, using your intelligence to learn from your own experience. And that's one of the good things about the Buddhist teachings, is you don't need a lot of equipment. Nowadays, any hobby you do, you need to buy equipment and go places and pay money and train and do this and do that. You know, to really follow what the Buddha was teaching, you only need what you've got already, a body and a mind, what you've got sitting right here at this time. But you're training yourself to observe the way things are. To patiently keep coming back to the truth, to see the changing nature of your own mental activity, your physical body, how it's changing with aging, weather, sickness, and as you do different activities, your body changes and your mind changes. And just to keep observing that. On the inside, you get a deeper knowledge which starts to stick with you. You know, one of the qualities of wisdom, the understanding you get from practicing Dhamma, is it stays with you, if it's true wisdom. It's different from, say, textbook knowledge that you may learn, remember, recite, discuss, but it doesn't go in very deep and it can easily be forgotten or lost. But true wisdom stays with you. It's something that you come to rely on. Whether you call it intuitive wisdom or discernment or the Buddha's word panya, it's that clarity that knows the way things are, and it's this clarity and clear understanding that frees the mind from suffering. Because you know. So it's the opposite of intoxication or delusion or not knowing. Because when we don't know the truth, we tend to suffer. We cling on, we get lost in our experience. And so life often seems like a roller coaster, or difficult. Life is difficult. It's totally understandable, but it's coming from delusion. Whereas wisdom is the opposite. It's this inner knowledge, inner understanding that's saying, things are just this way. They arise and they pass away. You don't need to grasp at every emotion that comes up. You see it, you know it, but then you let it go, because it's not a permanent self to be grasped at. So sometimes Luang Por Chao would say, just keep patiently contemplating, watching your experience, and all the Dhamma will be revealed to you. You don't have to go anywhere or do anything special, but you just keep watching from what's coming up. It's so obvious that we miss it all the time. We fail to see our own experience, and so we keep getting caught out. We keep suffering, keep reacting with annoyance or fear or worry or doubt or wanting and then getting disappointed because we miss the truth. Someone asked Ajahn Chah once, does the enlightened person, they eat sweet fruit like sweet mango, do they still experience sweetness? He said, yeah, of course. They still got a mouth and taste buds, so they know what a sweet tasting mango tastes like. but they don't grasp at that sweetness. They don't crave it, they don't grasp at it. They know it's impermanent, it's not self, it's not to be held on to. You know it, but you let it go. It's just that way. Or you eat a sour fruit, tamarind, he said, sour tamarind fruit. You know it's sour, of course. Still got a mouth. The Buddha still had a mouth. He understood and knew sweet or sour, but he didn't grasp, he didn't react with aversion or liking or disliking. You just know, oh, it's just like that. Sweet is like that, sour is like that. How other people speak and behave. Some people treat you well, it's like that. Some people treat you badly, it's like that. But you don't always have to react. You're aiming to develop this quality of awareness and not to get intoxicated and lost in your experience. What we tend to do when we're not awake, when we're intoxicated, is we grasp the experience and then we keep holding on to it, remembering it, clinging to it, and so it produces more suffering over and over again. Something good happens and you cling on to the pleasure of that experience, and then you keep missing it when it's gone, wanting it, wanting to relive it, get it back again, and the mind is never happy. Never, the business is never finished. It's always wanting more. Or you have a bad experience and you cling on to that and keep going over it, inflicting pain on yourself over and over again by remembering and holding on. Neither of these ways are the way to true peace, because we're clinging and getting lost in the experience. And because we have a memory, we can remember things, even if we remember them wrongly, but we can remember pleasant, unpleasant experiences for weeks and months and years and suffer over and over again. And our aim is just to know that is the way it was. What was pleasant is pleasant, and what was unpleasant is unpleasant, and then to put it down, let it go. So the awakened mind, it's experiencing things, but not grasping or clinging. So they say that mind is peaceful, it's bright, it's happy, happy in the true sense of the word. It's happiness that is lasting. That's why when we meditate, we might experience a little bit of that, for a few moments even. Where you're just putting things down, your mind is in the present moment, it's letting go. It's not that it's asleep or in a dream, it knows everything that's happening, but it's not holding on. So it's at ease. But we haven't finished this path, we haven't climbed to the top of the mountain yet. So as we go along, what we do is we forget. We go back to clinging and holding on again. So we've always got this sort of sense of the mind is still got some business to do. There's still another thing I've got to do, another thing I've got to get, another place I've got to go. The mind can't enjoy its stillness, which is just there. It's just round the corner, very close. But then it can't enjoy it because then it throws up another desire or another reaction. I've got to do this, react to that. I like this, I don't like that. I want this, I don't want that. I've got to get rid of that. Very tiring. It's like you've got this tyrant, the bossy voice in the back of the head all the time. And this is far more oppressive than the government or someone else telling you what to do all the time. It's your own voice in your own head. If you can patiently keep contemplating this, your mind starts to tire of that voice. Quite naturally, turns away. Like, oh, I don't want to follow it anymore. It's so one experiences and appreciates stillness more. Stillness becomes much more valuable. Another thing is people think, well, what does that mean? Is the mind is still, the voice of the tyrant of liking and disliking has gone. Does that mean you just don't think, don't feel, don't know anything? Well, the Buddha could still think. It's just those thoughts were all coming from his intelligence, his wisdom. He could use the thinking mind as a tool to help, teach others, help others. But he's not oppressed by it. His thoughts arise, pass away, but he could let them go. Feelings arise, pleasure and pain, but he lets them go. So he's still a thinking, feeling human being, but he doesn't grasp and he doesn't get lost in the experience. Just turns everything into Dhamma and uses it to help others, to give them some whatever they need, clarity or warmth or support. You see, when you're developing more inner awareness and contemplating things, your mind is more ready to be used in that way for good things, to improve your life, to help other people get things done. But there's not this endless voice of delusion always bossing you around, complaining, getting excited and happy, and then complaining and getting annoyed. It's not reacting in that way anymore. It's just doing what is useful, what is helpful. Or if there's nothing that needs to be done, then just being quiet, peaceful. So I think we all need more of that in the mind that is patient, contemplating the truth, letting go of clinging and craving and attachment. So I encourage you all to keep practicing and develop this inner awareness, just like the Buddha in your own mind. Keep developing that over and over again. It will bring you more and more happiness throughout your life. So I'll leave you with these teachings tonight.
Antamayang vatakatha sadhukarang tatamase sadhu sadhu